everyone.
I'm back, baby.
It's Jake Seeley.
I'm great. Everybody else sucks.
Oh,
no. It's every nightmare I've ever had.
Excuse me?
It's time to check the link.
Pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show.
you know what? You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No.
What is up, you ducks? It is All in Football. It feels like forever now that we're doing this once a week in the off season. It's myself and Jeff Ratcliffe, and it probably feels even longer for you because you're off next week as we start to rotate. Next week is Chris Meany, and then Jeff will be back and all sorts of goodness. We're going to stay here once a week as a reminder, live, if you want to check everything out on the YouTube channel and also theathletic.com/besttv, all capitals, gets you your first free month. Make sure you're following Jeff over at FTN. Make sure you listen to his show at SiriusXM. What are you doing? Jeff, you don't have Sunday mornings anymore. Now, what do you just enjoy getting to? You do? You still have the Sunday mornings?
Yeah, we're straight on. Last year I did straight on through the Super Bowl because we had the Super Bowl. So we have shows all week, Super Bowl week, if CBS has the Super Bowl. So I did 2 of the 5 shows, talked about DFS. It's great that we have Showdown, and now we talk sports betting on the show. So yeah, I'm in. I'm doing 5 or 6 segments this upcoming Sunday. So yeah, we're still there, man.
I got it because you said that you had the Super Bowl last year. I wasn't sure. I just kind of figured it stopped. Or so are you up to the Super Bowl and then you keep going, or are you just done at the Super Bowl?
So we're up to conference championship. So 2 more shows left for me. Conference championship show is just a 2-hour show, but we're 3 hours on Sunday. This last Sunday was great. We had 4 games to talk about. We've never had that in the playoffs before because we don't have the Saturday games, unfortunately. But 4 games, it was great, man. Loved it.
So are you a fan of the Monday Night Football for the playoffs? Did you enjoy that?
I did. I know the players don't, but I did enjoy the fact that that it's spread out. It is Wild Card Weekend is the best weekend of football. And I know some people out there were complaining. Honestly, I think, no matter what, Jake, they complain the games weren't close, right? Okay, go back to the Rams and Patriots Super Bowl. That was a close game. And you know what people did? They complained about it. People complain about anything. I just think, it's good they spread it out. And another primetime game, another Manning cast, there's nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned.
That's the biggest thing is I just wanted to get another Manning cast in
there.
Yeah. That's the best part about it. Just the 2 of them. And hey, you got your boy Manning over there dropping a S-bomb.
Yeah, well, they're going to.
I can't hear. It's great. It's great to watch them. So, all right. Anything for, I will say one. I went 5-1. I'm sure you know the one I missed. I thought the real Cowboys would show up and not the bad. Did you go 6-0? Because I don't know if you disagree.
I did go
with me.
6-0.
You went 6-0.
I did go 6-0.
Yeah. Was it against the spread also, or did you just?
No, I did an article for Draft and Hold over at FTNFantasy.com. And as part of that article, I go through and I predict out the games. And I also predict the spreads for the following rounds. And I was pretty spot on with the spreads as well for this round. And, I'm sticking to my story. I still think it's Green Bay and Kansas City. I still think Green Bay wins. But definitely now that we're here and I see Kansas City facing Buffalo as I had it, I definitely am like, ooh, this is a lot closer than I want it to be.
Yes, this is actually where the entire break is going to come because you had Kansas City, Green Bay. I had Buffalo, Green Bay. I actually the same 5-1 against the spread, the same as the 5-1 picks. Again, the obvious one with the Cowboys. Hey, I got tricked like everybody else. Good job, Mike McCarthy, and your game plan calling and everything like that. Interesting, and that's what we're going to talk about. So this week and next week, today for everybody, mostly running backs, a little bit of quarterback, because to go through the entire 2022 rankings, which Jeff has, make sure you check his out. His actually were out last week. Mine came out this week. You can check them all out on both of our sites. We're going to get into that. But, yeah, the Buffalo game is going to be – is that your favorite game of the weekend? Is that what you're looking forward to with all these? Yeah, I think that –
all of it's great. Each one has its own unique storyline. Like Derrick Henry coming back is fascinating. Aaron Rodgers' redemption at home with this –
come back. There's reports today that there's skepticism of whether or not he's going to play.
If he doesn't come back, then a lot of my postseason fantasy football leagues are screwed.
The draft you and I did last week, I'm totally because you guys backed me into a corner and I went so heavy Cowboys. I'm already done in that one.
Well, I talked about that on the SiriusXM show though, and I still don't think it was a mistake. You did the right thing. It wasn't the right team, but you went all in. And if you really want to win in the postseason, you can't spread around. So I think the approach was perfect. It's just that's what happens in postseason leagues. It happens every year. I've been on the wrong side of it most years. It just happens.
All right, so then real quick as we dive into these rankings, from the wild card round, it could be fantasy related or not, Jeff. Outside of Cam Akers, because I know that's the number one, what was your biggest takeaway from wild card weekend? Was it how ridiculously dominant the Bills were, or was there something else that you just thought from wild card weekend was like kind of the big thing you like I said, it doesn't have to be fantasy related for you if that's not what it is?
I think that the Kansas City Chiefs have this unique ability to play down to their competition for a little while, just sort of like mess around with them, and then all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, now we're going to start playing. I don't know if they're going to get away with that with the Bills, but it's amazing. It's amazing to see Jerick McKinnon, who really, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you basically would say was washed up, and he looked amazing. He looked incredible in that game.
He really did. He did, and I like that. I even tweeted that during the game. I was like, "This is the team and the game for all the people that say running backs don't matter."
Yeah,
here you go. This is your champion player right here to go ahead. By the way, I think I mentioned this to you before. For everybody out there, maybe I heard. I went to ODU, and this was actually after I graduated, but not that far after. But I actually watched Jerick McKinnon run for 200 of the 600 yards that Georgia Southern put up on my ODU Monarchs. It was not a good day. They attempted, I think, 4 passes the entire day because they ran. I know, but 600 rushing yards. They ran for 600 rushing yards. That's insane. That's unheard of.
Yeah, I don't even know how you get over that as a coach. You're the D coordinator. You're just like, all right.
The coach isn't there anymore.
Go figure.
Go figure. Real quick, I was just texting our producer Tino, but anyway. All right. So yes, Mr. Think 1138. Yeah, I was going to answer your question anyway because we are talking way too early rankings. 2022 rankings. I don't know where you had them, Jeff. I had Cam Akers before the game already at 13. I've been telling, and people know this in the waiver columns. I was talking about future stashes if you're already out of it or if you're thinking for next year. And for Cam Akers, I had him at 13. I moved him up one spot after that game, just one, because I'm not going crazy, and it's just one game. But he leapfrogged Elijah Mitchell for the fact of the passing game use and how much of the split would he get. Here's the big question about Cam Akers, and I don't even want to say, oh, you have him at 10, so you love him, or you have him at 15, so you hate him. That's not even where we're going. Like, do you think it's kind of a two-part question? But do you think fringe RB1 range is a fair spot? Like, we don't have to sit here and debate 11 to 14 to 12 or whatever. And then the second part of it being is because of what this team has dealt with injury-wise at the running back position and the fact that the landscape of the NFL has so few bell cow, and I'm talking like 80% of the workload, as good as he looks and as much as McVay has leaned on one running back, do you think Cam Akers even gets to 80% next year because of what they dealt with? So it's kind of they kind of intertwine the two-part question there for you.
And I think even a preface to that, first things first, if you see rankings that are out right now and you want to yell at whoever put those rankings out, you just don't get it, dude. You don't get it.
Yelled at. Wait.
I had some guy literally creating multiple accounts to continue to troll me as I blocked them. And this dude created like 5 accounts, and I can guarantee you that this dude listens to every second of my radio show, and he probably has an account where he's nice to me and asks for advice. And it was all about how I rank Najee Harris, who is very difficult to rank because we don't know who their quarterback is at this point, and that has a huge factor. You know, seriously. So you're going to be that person right now. You just don't get it, and especially if you're going to debate 2 or 3 spots.
Okay. So before we get to Harris, let's get to so the one that I was getting yelled at because I had Amon-Ra St. Brown at 27 at wide receiver,
which is fine.
I thought that was pretty damn aggressive. Like,
it's fine.
There's no Swift, no Hawkinson. We're going to talk about that on the wide receiver show. But anyway, yeah, Cam Akers for you and the thought process of the workload for next year.
So Cam Akers, can he be fringe RB1? Yes. But you know what he'll also be, if that is the case? He will be in the dead zone. Because the dead zone for me essentially starts outside of the first round. And it lasts all the way up through the 6th round, which means he's in a place where I'm not really willing to draft him. And I do think you bring up a viable concern. Sergey Michelle is on this roster, and as far as I know, he's not a free agent, right? Is he still?
I know Daryl Henderson's not. The Sony Michelle one, I'm not sure.
I have to check on his contract, but if he's still there, then they're going to use him. They're going to use all of them, and you run into a problem. And McVay, I think McVay has been down this road. Well, once in particular, that now hopefully second time using Cam Akers, maybe he'll go back and say, wait a minute, I don't want to turn this guy into Todd Gurley. He is a free agent. Yeah, he'll reach free agency. They won't re-sign him. But
you still have Daryl Henderson.
You still have Daryl Henderson.
He was actually, interesting enough, when he was traded, his contract was stricken for the final year. That's why you're probably thinking of that. 2022 got eliminated when they traded him.
Yeah, that was smart. That's
because it's a rookie deal. That's why. There you go.
Rookie deal with the first round.
Yes.
He had a 5th-year option.
Yes, and once he got traded, there you go.
Okay.
So anyway, but Daryl Henderson's still around.
So I think fringe, yes. I mean, there are some interesting players that are right in and around that range. You mentioned Elijah Mitchell. I'm curious of how that backfield unfolds for next year. You would have to think that he's in the lead, but it's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. So
he's in the lead until he gets hurt, and it's the next year it's Trey Sermon or something like that.
Yeah, maybe it is Trey Sermon. That would definitely troll everybody. But I have him at 14 among running backs right now. So I think we're generally thinking in about the same range. We don't at 14 for me. He's definitively not a first round pick in redraft leagues, but he is very likely a second round pick.
Okay. And that's where, so for everybody out there too, we differentiate a little bit, Jeff and I do, with the dead zone situation. As I'm more starting the third, Jeff is starting the second. So it just kind of comes down to your draft philosophy and where you want to go with that. But I'm going to go back up. I'm starting with Cam Akers because everybody wanted to ask about Cam Akers after that game, obviously. And holy crap, testament to the medicine today, because not only back in 5.5 months, but back and looking like that. Like, that's just ridiculous. I jokingly said his new name. I was hoping he would accept my tweet and say this. He is now definitively the nickname. I don't care if he wants it or not. He is Cam the Wolverine Akers. Like, that healing factor is ridiculous to be able to do that. But to go back up the ranks, Jeff, I put this player at number 3, and I put said player who, yes, 5 healthy games. I understand 5 healthy games. I made that point. I understand it's 5 healthy games. In 4 of those games, 21 or more points. 1 game less than that, which was still double digits. He averaged about 21 points per game in those 5. That's Christian McCaffrey. I understand 2 years in a row, the injuries, and people are like, oh my God, it's like, I'm just not doing it again. But I look at it this way, Jeff. There's a clear 1 and 2 for me. I think it's Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and then you open up the conversation. Yep. I mean, you could honestly open up the conversation and say, screw this, I'm taking Cooper Kupp number 3, and I'm not even playing this running back game. But I look at it this way. Of the names that Christian McCaffrey's there with, who potentially could still finish number 1 and win your league is Christian McCaffrey. If you don't want to make that pick, I'm not going to say no, but I want you to kind of come back at me and say, like, is that crazy to say he's 3, or do you understand where I'm coming from?
Well, I do understand where you're coming from. I do understand why you would get backlash to that. I think that immediately people have this bias, especially people who selected him first overall back-to-back years, because I'm sure there are people out there who play fantasy football who have done that. But here's the name I want to throw at you, Jake, that is the rebuttal and really should drive home that I think it's not outlandish to have him ranked at 3. I have him ranked at 7 right now, but that's a tight grouping in that range. And I do have it. I have Taylor, Henry, and then it's like Eckler and Cook and Kamara and Harris, and you can jumble them all together, and they're all in the same tier, along with McCaffrey. The name I want to throw out is Saquon Barkley. This is a very different situation than Saquon Barkley. Every time Christian McCaffrey has been on the field over the last 2 seasons, he has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, utterly dominant. As compared to Saquon, when he is on the field, he has shown flashes, but I would not say there's even been a moment where I've said dominant. I just haven't seen it. Every time McCaffrey's on the field, you say dominant. He is 25 years old. He's not 30. Now, he will have an interesting situation. Man, if they bring in Jay Gruden or something like this, they're supposed to make a splash, and you're telling me Jay Gruden? these are the names you're interviewing. Like, where's the splash here? I'm not seeing it. I also would love to see them either commit to using Chuba more going forward, because obviously he'll be on this roster because he's coming off of his rookie season, or something else, because 25 touches of McCaffrey is great. I actually think 18 touches of McCaffrey could be better, believe it or not. I think that, is now more sustainable. And he can still be, like you said, a league winner. He can still be a league winner there. And the beauty to it is the bad taste in people's mouths. If I rank him at 7, you rank him at 3, he still probably doesn't even go in that range. He probably still goes in the back end of the first round, which now becomes very interesting.
It does. And I thought the name you were going to throw at me, I love the comparison that you made. The name I was thinking you were going to say was the one that I always come back with, is, who was injury prone until he wasn't? Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette was injured in college. First 2 years in the NFL, hurt both years. The very next year, and it was a volume-reliant situation with the Jaguars, but finishes as a top 5 running. We're talking about Leonard Fournette, too. Not even your argument of how good Christian McCaffrey. We're still talking about Leonard Fournette. We're talking practice. We're talking Leonard Fournette. It was top 5 running back after injured, 4 years in a row, if you include college? And so injury prone until they're not. I understand if you want to stay away from it. So that's the other name you mentioned in your group. You already mentioned that you were getting yelled at for Najee Harris. So first of all, where is Najee Harris for you?
The initial rankings came out, he was 9, and people don't get rankings and they don't understand the difference between tiers. I have him at 6 now, but like I said, there's no difference between these guys. And if you
went from hating him to loving him, because I have him at 7. So there you go, Jeff.
There you go. Yeah, I have McCaffrey at 7, and he's been tough to rank as well. But people just don't get that. The difference between those players over the course of an entire season is minuscule. And we're really debating ceilings and floors and preference. And at which point, this is my preference. Do whatever the hell you want, right? I'm not telling anybody out there in fantasy land what to do. That is not what I'm here to do. I know there are some analysts who do that. I don't. You do your own thing, right? I'm just telling you what I'm doing. And you could love it. You could hate it. But yelling at me on Twitter, creating accounts to yell at me even further, what does that accomplish? It doesn't do anything. So just do your own thing if you don't like it, right?
I love it. Jeff woke up today and chose violence. I love it.
I'm a glass half full kind of guy, Jake. I thought every game was very entertaining this past weekend. I didn't hate anything. That was the ultimate hot take that was so cold. Like, oh, these games suck. Okay, bro, don't watch it then, right? Like, you watched it. You watched every second of it. It was so sucky that you kept it on for every second of every game.
Hey, Island Games, man. It'll glue you in if you care about the football. So, here, real quick, on the serious side of Najee Harris, we've already seen the rumors that Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins are the leads as of right now. We have to see if anything happens in free agency. Not that there's options.
Or trade. Kirk Cousins, baby.
Kirk Cousins. Jimmy Garoppolo. You can see something like that where they draft somebody.
Get excited.
Here's what I want to say real quick. And I can't bring up the name without a quick sad note or whatever, but Mike Tagliere wrote an article 2 years ago, and it was about the fact that top 10 running backs don't ever exist on bottom 5 offenses. I think it might even been bottom 10 offenses. I forget what his cutoff was, but that was his point. It's like you just don't get a top 10 running back if you're on an offense that low. In this preseason, we talked about offensive line isn't as big as a factor as you can consider, but offense is. Total offense is. Offensive line isn't. So, saying this to ask you, Jeff, if you knew today Mason Rudolph is the starter, we've seen what happened to Barkley, not just because of coming off the injury, but how miserable the Giants' offense is. If you knew Mason Rudolph was the starter, would you knock Harris outside of your top 10?
It'd be close. That's the factor that's so difficult. I'm much more comfortable ranking when I have projections. And Jake, I don't do projections until essentially the draft, right? And then I do live projections during the draft. So right now it's a lot of speculation, and this is a factor I just can't answer. We know that he was effective enough, obviously because of volume. When you have 381 touches, it's almost impossible. You'd have to have Peyton Barber levels of inefficiency to not finish as a top 10 back, much less a top 5, which is what he was. Yeah. Well, there you go. But we saw that their offense was incredibly condensed. At least they had Ben Roethlisberger, even though he couldn't really do it with his arm. He could still obviously do it with his brain. You know, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback who does know the game quite well. So even in that inefficient, really condensed offense, they were able to move the football. I think that Mason Rudolph does spread the field a little bit more for them, but I don't know if he can really move the offense. You know, we're dealing with a very small sample on him in terms of starts as well. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like I'd be more confident with Jimmy G. Honestly, I think Jimmy G can at least move the offense. His name out there.
Yeah. I think it's very much like if Mason Rudolph throwing Mike Glennon at quarterback. And that's why I brought up that comparison. It's like, yeah, I don't know if it's quite that bad, but
he's not that tall.
He doesn't have the neck strength for that. Let's talk another running back, but from a different angle. This could be like, let me ask you, what is too high in this scenario? Because the interesting one, we did the Athletic pod yesterday, and Brandon Funston thought I had Javonte Williams too low. Now, Javonte Williams I have as an RB1, but he said I could see him finishing as a top 5 running back. And I said, here's my pushback. And it has nothing to do with Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, quarterback, whatever. I look at the Broncos, and I am assuming Melvin Gordon's gone. I'm assuming Melvin Gordon's going to try and get a contract. He probably won't get starter money, but he's probably going to try and get one last big contract somewhere. It'll probably be a timeshare. But he's not definitively gone. And I think the Broncos are happy with what they had in a similar, more split than the Browns, but we see what the Browns do. And I don't know that Javonte Williams is walking into the Najee Harris workload. I love, you know this, we've talked about him all year. We all love Javonte Williams. I just don't know I'm ready to put him anywhere near that group, as you mentioned, with the Alvin Kamara and stuff like that, because I think everybody's assuming Melvin Gordon's gone, and that means 80% of the workload for Williams. And I think it's too early to definitely say that's going to happen until we see what they do in the offseason. I think the Broncos could easily go in and bring somebody else, Rashad Penny, just somebody else to split the workload with them.
Jake, I think that the big secret in what you and I do that separates folks in our position from a lot of folks who just play fantasy football is that we realize overreacting is nearly always a mistake. And if you're going to say right now that Javonte Williams is a top 5 back, you're overreacting. It is a mistake. Now, does he have a top 5 ceiling? Sure. He's fantastic. You know, we both acknowledge that. But that would be an overreaction. And unfortunately, I think that's the pitfall of a lot of people who play fantasy football is they overreact. They don't react, they overreact. And right now we do have 2 big pieces to this puzzle that are not in place. We do not have a quarterback. It will not be Teddy Bridgewater, right? It won't be Drew Lock. And we don't have a head coach, right? Who is the head coach? Are they going to go defensive-minded again? Is it Dan Quinn or whatever? If they do that, what are we doing offensive coordinator-wise? And now the dynamic changes. And then you just mentioned, what do they do in free agency? Do they bring in another complementary piece? Because the era of bell cow backs has been proven to be, well, very problematic and likely soon will be completely in the rearview mirror. There will be a couple holdovers. But for the most part, we're going to see timeshares, at least, if not committees. And in that instance, it does put a cap on what he can ultimately do. If you don't touch the ball a ton, or if you touch it at the wrong time, which happened to him multiple times this year, where Gordon gets the touchdowns, not him, it puts a cap on what you can do.
Do you want to? Here's this number I pulled up, and now I said the same thing on the Athletic podcast. It's that 250 is the nice number, and I was saying 250 touches, not carries, 250 touches, but I dropped down to 245 to get 2 more players because Leonard Fournette got into that group missing time. He got to the 245 mark, and there was one other. I forget who it is, but do you want to guess off the top of your head how many running backs over the course of this season had 245 touches or more this year? What do you think?
8.
13. More than 13. You thought. It went from 11 to 13. Also, so
that's
remember,
the Lamar Miller line, by the way.
It
was like Lamar Miller, 245. 240, 245.
The thing is, too, is let's remember, extra game. If they play 17 games, that's not even 15 touches a game for everybody. Like, just that's the bigger number I want everybody to click in their head. It's like 15 touches per game. That's not really a bell cow. That's, hey, you're Jamal Charles. I don't care if you only get 15 because I know what you're going to do. Christian McCaffrey, 15? Great. I don't even need you to get 20. But 15 is not bell cow, and I just wanted to think about that. 13 running backs only hit that number, and that was 14. I think it's 14.4 or something like that per game. All right, so we already hit on Elijah Mitchell. It's very simple. If we go into next year, he is they don't do anything. There aren't any injuries. This is the same roster as of next year. He's the guy. So RB1 for you? I have him at 13. Just missed.
No, I'm much lower. I right now have him at 20.
Is that Shanahan again, or is
it's not that? No, I think that he's a lot more forthcoming than his father, and so I don't really buy into that with him. It's early down roll. What do we have passing down wise? I it feels like every year they're trying to turn over that roster at running back in some way, shape, or form. And then what is the impact of having a running quarterback?
Sure.
So. And again, this is me ranking without projections, without looking at what this team ultimately is going to look like. So it's challenging. Maybe I'm a tick too low. I can't have him on the fringe of RB1 territory. Now, I love him this weekend, especially because if you're going to neutralize the Packers, run the darn ball. Debo and Elijah are the keys to that game. But looking forward to next year. And hey, honestly, still RB2 right in that range with the potential for 15 to 20 carries per game is great. Now, the injury issue is also a concern. There seems to be something with that offense that does it's pretty conducive to running backs getting hurt. I mean, I'm not a physician, but it does seem like these guys get banged up.
Maybe it's because Shanahan gives any running back 25 touches every single week. That's the thing. More opportunities to get hurt. All right. Speaking of injuries, I want to go to this next one. Deandre Swift. He was tough for me because part of it, you go back to, you're trying to factor in the offense. We're also trying to factor in how healthy is he next year. We'll assume 100% for this situation, but is this also what we've been talking about so far? Does he even get 18 touches a game? Because this is now multiple injuries already to start his career. But we know the upside. We've seen him, not quite Christian McCaffrey, but if you just give him 15 touches, likely finishing inside the top 15 in running backs every single week because of what he can do. So for that point, I actually had one spot behind Mitchell, Swift at 14. He's one spot in front of, which is crazy to say, who I think has the more guaranteed workload, but the much worse offense when you think about it. It's insane to say this, but Saquon Barkley right behind DeAndre Swift. So I go Mitchell, Swift, Barkley. Are you higher or lower on Swift? What are your concerns? What are your thoughts, just in general?
I am a little bit higher. I'm lower on Barkley than you are. Another whole set of uncertainty with that team.
Yeah.
But Swift. For me, it's not quite McCaffrey. It is more Kamara, but we're kind of splitting hairs. They're all cut from the same cloth for sure, and that is the modern running back. He has that. I do think there are elements to that offense that are intriguing. I do think the franchise is moving in the right direction. They do have some moves, obviously, they're going to need to make in free agency and the draft. But if he, it is the if he can stay healthy, he is a massive factor. I mean, this is a guy who has triple-digit catch upside if he stays healthy through. And I don't even think 17. I think if you get 14 or 15 games out of him, it wouldn't be shocking if he posted 100 catches on the year, which is an enormous number, but he was on pace to do so this season. So, yeah, I'm bullish on him. I have him at 11. I think it's the ceiling play, I think, that is the most appealing with him.
Sure, and we're both in the same range. I'm with you, and I'm with you in the fact that you want to talk about two completely different 180 teams this year. You want to talk about one team that very minimal talent, probably got the most out of it out of anybody in that Lions, at least playing hard week in and week out and looking like they're giving the cliche 110%. But on the flip side, the New York Giants, we just talk about talent, and doing absolutely nothing with it. The one counter side to it, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all for the risk with Saquon Barkley, and as you mentioned, a lot of mediocre games, especially from the run department, is that I go back to Inside Injuries, who kept saying at the beginning of this year, should have listened to them. They said, you won't get the real Saquon Barkley till 2022. That injury just doesn't usually happen the first year back. And Dan Dugan for us said that you saw some of the second level bursts that normally he would hit almost right away. And that's the difference, is he doesn't have that anymore. So I think that's something to watch in the offseason. I'll bet if he doesn't get that second level burst back quicker, as in his second, third step versus his fourth, fifth step, he'll move down. But obviously I get all of your concerns on this one. So here's one that I thought I wasn't expecting as much pushback, and I think the pushback was different also than what I expected. I had Zeke Elliott really low. For Ezekiel Elliott, I have him as a low-end RB2, and I have Tony Pollard on his heels because I'm thinking this backfield, from what we've seen, and a healthy Tony Pollard, we're now looking at the Broncos for next year. Like, Zeke's time at 70% is done. I think that's very clear for this offense. And I said where I thought I would get pushback is I was like, oh, you hate Zeke Elliott. I think you have Zeke Elliott a little too high. I was like, wow, are we putting Tony Pollard in front of Zeke Elliott now? But, I mean, is there a conversation to be had here? This could be a worst case scenario and they're both RB3s next year in this offense?
Yeah, possibly. He's a difficult one to rank as well. I had pushback round about this time last year, dynasty startup drafts going on, and somebody had said, oh, I couldn't believe it. I got Zeke in the fourth. And I was like, I wouldn't have drafted Zeke in a billion years in a dynasty startup. And it was like, you would have thought I was speaking in a different language. Like, why in the world? And I said, you draft a guy like that at that age, you basically have to trade him immediately in a dynasty league. You can't hold on to him, or else you're just going to end up cutting him. And if you cut players in dynasty leagues, it's so hard to replenish your roster. You're on the fast track to a rebuild. So I agree that the downward spiral, typically when it starts, it does not reverse, especially at running back. And we saw it this year. He lost a half step. Now he's run hard. It's not for lack of effort, but he's not the same player. And he was never a player with major bursts earlier in his career, but he's not the same type of player now. They can use him. He can be effective for them. Can he be... If the offense worked right, Jake, he could be James Conner in the red zone, right? James Conner revived his career because of the red zone this year. And
as soon as you said it doesn't happen very often either, that was the first name that came to mind too.
But he didn't. I don't even think that anything changed in terms of how he looks on the field. It was just the red zone work, and he was asked to be a 3-down back for a little bit, which he can do. Zeke could do that too. But Pollard got hurt, and Zeke had 25 touches. He'd be an RB1 very likely, but it's just, you're right, they're going to split the workload. I'm curious to see what they do. If it's status quo, do they let Michael Gallup walk? You know, is it just me, or is Cedric Wilson better than Michael Gallup?
I mean, you actually have a Michael Gallup clone. Oh, this is super deep diving, but Fihoko, I think, is like his clone, and I thought Gallup was gone.
He's the Jeff Janis clone, baby.
Jeff Janis. I'm with you, though. I don't see any reason they'd bring back Michael Gallup. That's more of a luxury situation. I think you shore up the depth that you have at the offensive line, because that's been the strength anyway. And I think it is that, and then in defense. I think that's where they head. But it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, Mike McCarthy all over again. But that's a sidebar. That's more off-season talk. Phil Mike, I think he's got a quote. He said, I can see more multi-touchdown games for Zeke than 100-yard games for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
James Conner, there you go. I can see that as well. Jiggles, I would love to remake the Giants offense. I have put my name in the hat for the GM. They never called me. I never got a first interview, let alone a second interview. And if I did it on Madden, just so you know, if you haven't seen that roster, everybody, I've tweeted this a million times to let everybody just one more final stab at how bad Gettleman was. They already have $107 million for 6 players on the roster for next year. They have no room to make this work. We're talking 2023, everybody. Like, I'm excited that they're doing these changes as a Giants fan for hope for the future, but do not expect anything for 2022. We're talking 2023, and then we'll get excited. Same thing. It would take me a year's work in Madden for me to turn that roster around. It's ridiculous. Jeff, 6 players, $107 million, and that's not including Shepard, who is technically on for another 12, but if they release him, they cut 7.99, and so because the dead money, so they save like what, $4.5 million.
I gotta get Kenny Galladay's agent, man. This dude. Is that 18 million? Is that what he got him?
Yeah, you just need to find David Gettleman, and you'll get a contract.
Yeah,
he'll give you something.
Well, I don't know if we'll find him ever again.
So let's talk about another backfield situation. Initially, and I still do, I have Jones and Dillon kind of in the same range as Zeke and Pollard. That's not how I want to ask this question for you, Jeff. I've been known as the Aaron Jones hater. I hate him so much because I don't want him to be a top 5 running back. No, I hate the use. I love Aaron Jones on a per-touch basis. I don't like the use. He's not a bell cow. A.J. Dillon, even a bigger concern than this year. Hey, I was right. I was justified this year. Thank you, everybody. But I want to phrase it this way, Jeff. could we see A.J. Dillon in front of Aaron Jones next year? Like, is there a possible, and I say this as a buying opportunity potentially for fantasy, and I know some dynasty owners will be like, oh, A.J. Dillon, I'm not giving him up for anything. He will be the guy. I'm just saying, there are some opportunities, maybe even to sell Aaron Jones, where now he is Chase Edmonds, but A.J. Dillon's like a good version of James Conner, like even more rushing yards. Is that a potential for 2022 with the Packers?
Well, it wouldn't be the reason for me to sell in Dynasty. It would simply be age and years in the league for Aaron Jones. It's easy. Sell for whatever you can get right now for him. Get picks. Remember, third-round rookie picks, fourth-round rookie picks, they aren't worth anything, really, because those are shots in the dark. You want to try and get yourself at least into the top 20, and certainly if you can get first-rounders, get first-rounders. So I'd be selling there for that reason, not for the potential. And I think, Jake, it's going to be frustrating. I think it's going to be game script. It's going to be game plan as well, where there may be weeks where A.J. Dillon touches the ball more. We did see a little tiny bit of that this past year. I think we're going to see more of it next year. The plan for Dillon, it almost certainly, I don't have, I should have went up to Matt LaFleur at the Combine. We were in a couple places where he was, Jake. I should have been like, hey, Matt, A.J. Dillon, we didn't know he was going to draft him at that point, so I would have been seeing the future. But A.J. Dillon, you're drafting him to be your Derrick Henry, right? I mean, that's ultimately, you have to figure that's the idea when you have this early down back who could be a true workhorse. And then his ability in the passing game, which we didn't really expect, that is an added bonus. But if you have Aaron Jones, you're going to continue to use Aaron Jones. You locked him up to this contract, so you're going to continue to use him at least this next year. Still think he's slightly more valuable. His nose for the end zone is appealing, but his arrow is definitely pointing down.
Yeah, definitely agree. And we might not have Aaron Rodgers, although fences seem to be mending by the day. They're putting up more pickets as you can go along, but who knows? I mean, if there is no Aaron Rodgers and no Devontae Adams and it's Jordan Love and whatever, then
I think Adams will get tagged.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way they're going to let both of them walk together and especially potentially end up on the same team. There's
Adams wants a contract that would make him the highest paid wide receiver. Now, that would have to be north of DeAndre Hopkins. So you're talking a $28 million average per year with a lot of guaranteed money. The franchise tag would put him right around 20. And if he takes that, if he's tagged this year, I find it hard to believe at his age that he would ever get that type of contract that he's looking for.
Yeah.
I can see 20 to 22 million for sure, and with some decent guarantees. But Adams is no spring chicken at this point, and it's tough. Yeah, so you're talking another year. He's age 30. You're not locking a receiver like that up to a 4-year deal with confidence. You may give him a 4-year deal, but you're basically expecting him to play 2 years of the 4 years.
No, 100% there. All right, so back to running back. Last one for today, and talk some quarterbacks before we get out of here. If you missed at the top, we hit on Cam Akers to start, of course. We've kind of been going down the running backs list here. The late season surge from Devin Singletary, coupled with the usage. The biggest thing was a split backfield with Josh Allen is a nightmare. Like we saw for years what Cam Newton did to his backfield. But when it was, hey, Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey together, Christian McCaffrey was a top 3 running back. It's not like it can't happen. But the biggest problem is we were seeing split use with Josh Allen. That is not the case anymore. Devin Singletary has been a bell cow by bell cow standards. And it's not even close. There was a game recently where there was 2 touches that didn't go to him in the backfield when he had over 20. Is Singletary now... What are your thoughts on Singletary heading right now into 2022? Today, Jeff, what do you think about Devin Singletary?
I am prepared for them to draft a running back. I'll say that. They seem to have not had confidence in him from, really from the gate.
Draft Spiller or somebody like that.
Yeah.
They get a new Spiller.
Get another Spiller. Get him till he pukes. I would be ready for that. He's undersized. I don't think that he could really handle this type of workload over the course of an entire season. It's great. It's working right now. And Bills Mafia, I see you guys. You should be excited about this right now. But I don't think it's sustainable over the long term. There's a reason why they drafted a bigger back in Moss. Moss just didn't pan out. And that happens in the NFL. Certain players don't pan out. It's part of the game. But I could see them going back to the well, because Matt Breida for the long term, no. Moss looks like he's got 1 foot out the door as it is. I mean, yes, he was active last week, but barely. So, no, I would say RB3 right now for Singletary. I'm not any more bullish than that.
Okay. All right, so let's talk some quarterbacks before we get out of here. You mentioned it before, kind of in one of your answers about tiers, and the tiers conversation is always a good one. It kind of gives you an idea of, all right, why draft this first one as we're starting a new tier when you can wait an extra round and still get somebody in the same tier, especially at wide receivers, which is going to be a long conversation next week with Meany. Again, always 2 p.m.s on Wednesdays going 2 p.m.s plural 2 p.m. on Wednesdays going forward. I have one tier 1 question for you, Jeff. Should it be bigger than 2 players? Because I have 2, and that is it. It is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and then let's have a conversation. Are you the same for 2022?
Herbert's the tricky one because I think he could be included in there.
Would you? Hey, it's your tier. I wouldn't put him there yet. He starts tier 2 for me.
Yeah.
So do you want to put him there?
Well, he is at 3 for me as well. So I think that's the one that's debatable. Maybe he's got his own micro tier in by himself. By the way, I will say this: bottom of the tier, yes, in regular snake drafts, but top of the tier in auctions because you get your best values at the top of the tier.
Great point. Great point.
For you auction folks, I know that there's a lot of passionate auction folks out there. Herbert's the tricky one, and Kyler is going to be a really weird one to rank as well because of basically 2 years in a row of down the stretch kind of falling flat, looking incredible and then falling flat. I think he needs to take a major step forward as a passer. He has the arm, but I want to see him actually.
Injury killed him.
It did, and it didn't. He had he had more talent surrounding him this year than he has in years past. And really, Zach Ertz, did you realize from week 7 on, Zach Ertz was the number 4 fantasy tight end from when he joined the team?
He was back. Yeah, I don't disagree with you there.
And I think they do ultimately re-sign him because he'll head into free agency as well. And it'd be wise for them to just do so.
I think what Hopkins brings for what Murray's deficiency will always be, and it is height. You can't. Look, this is coming, and I'm saying this not to be like I told you so. This is so you understand. This is coming from somebody who said, stop overreacting to the height when he was drafted. I was on that side. At the same time, I can say that and also recognize that height still is a factor. It is a factor when you're 5'10", at best. Let's be honest. We saw Kyler Murray at the Combine. We know how tall.
I stood next to him at CBS. He's about 5'9". I will tell you this, Baker Mayfield, when he came in, he was close to my height, probably about an inch lower than me, or inch shorter than me, but he had on some Nikes, maybe a little platform.
George Costanza shoes.
Burrow was certainly taller than me, long and lean at that point. He's definitely put on some NFL
out there so
muscle.
They know. You're what, 6'4", Jeff?
No, so 6'3".
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody can get an idea. So you can.
I'm the short one in my family too, which is wild.
That's insane.
out of the males, yeah. All my uncles are at least my height, and then I have 2 cousins. One is 6'7", and just a enormous human being, and then the other one's 6'4". So yeah, I'm the short one.
Gee, they're freaking giants over there. All right. So anyway, the point being is you can't see 6'7" is usually what's standing in front of you, 5 of them to try and throw over top of us so they understand it. So what I was going to say is Hopkins brings that dimension where AJ Green is out, but AJ Green's not what AJ Green was anymore at this point. And I think he's
33 years old.
And those big throws, those contested catches to get downfield, because he still has the arm. So I still had Murray as 4 as of right now. So I'm going to run through. Let me ask you this, and I'm going to say, is there anybody who doesn't belong in this tier? Because here's the tier for me. I start at 3, and I go down to 11.
All right.
So I want to know if there's anybody, a 2-part question actually, Jeff. Is there anybody that doesn't belong in this tier for you? Or is there somebody I didn't mention who you think does belong in this tier? So my tier, we said Herbert, that's who I start with. Then Kyler Murray, I already mentioned. Lamar Jackson, Brady Rodgers, Burrow, Deshaun Watson, assuming, understandably, his a whole forget him, he's a conversation of his own.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. That's my tier.
I got to throw Stafford in there as well.
That's the same one Funston wanted to throw in there. He
had a 40 touchdown season.
I feel like this is his peak.
Well, I don't know if it is. It's his first year in the offense. I'm just not buying the anti-Stafford. I think another year.
Anti-Stafford, he's 12. He's one spot in front of Trey Lance for me.
Yeah, so. Trey Lance was the other one. And then landing spot-wise, Russ could be in the conversation.
14.
And did you mention Dak?
Yeah, Dak was 11.
Oh, Dak is in there. Okay. Dak's the line. All right. Yeah, Russ depends on where he lands. If you told me right now Russ goes to
the Giants.
Not the Giants. Not the Giants. If he went, what would be good for him? New Orleans, Vegas.
Denver?
I don't think he goes to Denver, but I would like it. The consideration that I have heard, and it's an important one as a married man, is he's going to have to go. His wife has a pretty big career as well. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And he's going to have to go somewhere where it works for her. Now, I guess Denver is a hub. So there's that, the Denver airport. That would be good for him, the weapons there. He does need that fleet of weapons to be effective. Outside of that, I think you have it right. Watson is super tricky. Hurts is a little tricky. I think they're going to continue to have him. But Jake, he's the only top 10 without 30 passing touchdowns this year. And you know how many touchdowns he had, right? Through the air?
What, 17?
16.
Yeah.
So not only did he not have 30, he barely had 15. He barely had over 3,000 passing yards when all the rest of the top 10 quarterbacks had over 4,000.
You know what you're talking about for Jalen Hurts? This was the argument I made for Daniel Jones this offseason. I said, but no, for the opposite way. I said why Jalen Hurts is this year's breakout is I said because if you just take Daniel Jones' passing numbers and give them to Hurts, you get a top 10 quarterback. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Got Daniel Jones.
It's just he's not going to score 10 rushing touchdowns very likely again. That's a big number. No. Like you take
I still
4
think he
away.
could be better as a passer. I think people are hating on him too much and not forgetting the fact that Devonta Smith is limited. It was a rookie. On top of it was hurt. On top of it, and then Jalen Reagor, one of the biggest busts. Man, if they could go back and get DK Metcalf, how wonderful would that be? I'm not completely out on Hurts yet, so before we get out of here, then let me ask you this.
It would have been Justin Jefferson in that draft.
That's what, yeah, thank you. That's what I meant. Thank you for clarifying that.
There's a drinking game in Philadelphia anytime the broadcasters mention that, which happens probably 3 or 4 times a game.
I said you would have got drunk if you were listening to The Rock on the Manning cast and drank every single time he said smells blood in the water. Did you say like 18 times? Like, come on, dude.
That had to be there.
So, last one before we get out of here. We mentioned Lance, and I wanted to ask you about Fields, because Fields is in that same conversation of he has the 700-800 rushing yard upside. He can. Sure. We've seen it from before. I have Fields at 15. That was the one we didn't get to. One spot behind Wilson. Is Fields the name, or is there somebody else, Trevor Lawrence, somebody, who's the name that we haven't mentioned that you could see becoming the surprise next year QB1?
Yeah, Fields would probably top the list. I mean, I think there's a couple players deeper who could surprise. I do think that, another year, Zach Wilson could be interesting and flashed. I know that people are going to hate on that, and I don't have him ranked particularly high, but he could be one of those like last round darts in a 1 quarterback league that ends up panning out. Jameis, if he lands in the right spot, if he stays in New Orleans, or does he go elsewhere? We know that there's at least a ceiling with him. But yeah, Fields, I'm at 16, so I'm right behind you there. I do like the potential, but coaching is going to be everything for the Chicago Bears.
Hey, it's not Matt Nagy. That's all we care about, right? But also, all you should care about, follow Jeff at Jeff Ratcliffe. Look at that for that transition as we get out of here. Over at FTN, code ALLIN, get you 20% off. theathletic.com/BetsTV, all capitals, gets your first free month. Jeff on Sirius XM, award-winning show, and on Sunday mornings through the playoffs before the Super Bowl, so make sure you're checking him out there. We'll be back 2 p.m. next Wednesday. Do us a favor, thumbs up, subscribe, review, all those good stuff, because we love you, and that's why we're still doing this. We'll see you next week.